In this video, we will go over the process for using the Family Self-Sufficiency Program tracking options in HDS Win. First, we will use the FSS menu option within the applicant tenant file to establish and manage the initial FSS contract and training and services plan for each participating family. To begin working with an individual's FSS account, we must first pull up the applicant tenant file for either the public housing or Section 8 account associated with the FSS program. When you enroll a new family in the FSS program, the first step is to establish the family's annual income, earned income, and family rent at the start of the contract. To enter this information, select FSS menu. The FSS menu has two tabs, Contract Information and Training and Services Plan. You should start with the Contract Information tab. Here, we must enter the contract start date, and the contract expiration date. Normally this is a 5-year contract. Then we must enter the starting annual income and earned income as well as the family rent at the beginning of the contract. The family rent for a voucher family should be sourced from the 50058 line F, and a public housing family will be line 9J. The next step is to save the contract information and enter in the goals for the training and services plan. Here, we first add the household members with training and services plans and enter in what their original goal is. Once the member record is saved, you can select plan details to enter additional goals and to-dos associated with the FSS program by selecting plan details. And here we can add new goals or new to-do items. If you were to select no, it would be defaulted to a to-do type, but you can always change it to say goal right here. When finished entering in additional goals, you can choose whether to print this plan by selecting Output or to simply close out of it by selecting Close Details. You can come back into the FSS menu option to update the contract details and the training and services plan at any time. After completing the information required under the FSS menu, the next step is to process the FSS Enrollment Addendum 50058 for the family. Please note that in order to properly report FSS to HUD, an FSS Addendum 50058 must be generated and reported to PIC. The Enrollment Addendum must be updated in PIC before PIC will accept any future progress or exit addendums for the family. Now we will go over how to perform the necessary 50058 actions for proper FSS reporting and demonstrate how the FSS addendum determines what is going to be credited to the tenant's FSS ledger escrow balance. When you go into the Actions screen within the applicant tenant file, you must first select the account associated with FSS. Generally, you will process an FSS addendum each time a new 50058 reexamination is processed for the family. You will have two options to report the FSS addendum. You can attach an FSS addendum to a newly created Action 8 FSS addendum only action, or you can attach the addendum to any unbatched certification, meaning a new admission, annual, interim, port-in, other change of unit, or annual re-exam searching. You can do this by selecting the specific unbatched action and hitting Add Edit FSS Addendum from the action screen. Please note that FSS addendums should never be attached to either a move-out or a port-out action because PIC will not read it. For our example, you will select New 50058 and select Action Code 8 FSS Addendum Only. When doing an FSS addendum, the effective date for field 2B should generally be a date within the current month to ensure it gets batched as soon as possible and will not cause a problem in PIC. Select Next. You must select Yes for line 2K, FSS participation now or in the last year, so the system will then prompt the user to do an FSS addendum anytime a new recertification is being processed for this family. After a participant completes their FSS contract, you can select No for this field the next time you do a recertification if you want to disable this pop-up message. You can take the defaults for the rest of the 5.8 until you get the option to select Finish. You can choose to enter comments before selecting Save and proceeding to enter the info for the FSS addendum itself. First, you must select if the tenant is participating in FSS, welfare to work, or both. When you check the appropriate program box, additional fields will display. You must select the appropriate report category, enrollment, progress, or exit. Then you must enter the effective date of the action, which is normally the first of a month, and it would normally coincide with a certification completed for the family. Finally, you must verify the PHA code for the administrating PHA. For the rest of the addendum, fill out the fields as required until you have the option to select Finish. When processing a progress or exit addendum, remember to calculate the current FSS account monthly credit and current FSS account balance on the final page before completing the addendum. The amount calculated for current FSS monthly credit will post to the tenant ledger. The current FSS account balance is also sourced from the tenant ledger. Also, when processing an exit addendum, additional fields will appear on the final page for you to state whether or not the family completed the contract and the option to state whether or not they moved in to homeownership or the reason for exit depending on what was selected for question 1. Finally, when you are finished with our addendum, you can select Finish to save it. Another important thing to monitor regarding FSS are FSS escrow balances under each tenant's ledger. You can access the tenant ledger by using Tenant Accounting, Tenant Ledger Receipts and Adjustments to pull up the family's balance for the current month. Here, you can see the beginning and ending escrow balances for the accounting month, and you also see monthly escrow posting if available. Whenever you backdate an addendum or notice that the FSS escrow balance is incorrect, it is imperative to correct the balance by doing an adjustment. To correct a balance, you would select the Adjustment button and select the necessary adjustment type. Usually for correction, you would use an Other FSS Escrow Adjustment or use code 3101 FSS Escrow Credit Adjustment and credit or debit the FSS escrow column for the difference between what is currently shown on the ledger and what the balance should be. Lastly, we will briefly go over the FSS options that can be found under the Applicant menu and then the FSS Family Self-Sufficiency menu. The Fss Addendum Report is a report that will generate a listing of all FSS participants, any 50058 actions processed for the tenant, and the corresponding FSS addendums generated. The FSS Escrow Account Statements will generate an account statement displaying FSS escrow activity for a selected tenant and date range. FSS Interest Allocation is an option used to distribute interest to each FSS account. An adjustment for interest will be posted to each account for the calculated prorated share of interest. The FSS Escrow Posting Report is a report that will display the amount of escrow posted to each applicable participant for a specified program month and year. The Fss Status Report is a report that will display the amount of escrow posted to each applicable participant for a specified program month and year. Finally, the Fss Training and Services Plan Report will show you the training and services plan's goals and to-dos for all your FSS participants.